Hey y'all, welcome back to Agape Gardens STL. Today I am repotting some aloe with some pups. I actually got these for free from a neighbor. They're pretty badly sunburned, so I've watered them. They've greened up a lot, and I am going to put them into separate pots. I have a lot of projects I'm working on in the next few days, so come along with me as we get some things done. I've never done this before, so this is a learning experience for me also. But I do understand that you have to have a well-draining kind of soil, that you should let the plants dry out and then water them deeply after they've dried out. And these are called pups, and they should be able to be planted separately. Okay, so we've got the aloe separated. It's been a couple of days. I'm moving on to the next activity. I have a lot of preserving that I have to do. Once you start getting fresh produce coming in, you have to deal with it. Otherwise it starts to go bad. And unfortunately, some of that has started happening to me. So some of these tomatoes have like stink bug damage, and some have some cracking. So I'm just gonna tear them away, and I'm gonna put them in a freezer bag so I can process and can them later. Normally, my preference is not to freeze the tomatoes. However, when you don't have enough tomatoes to can a whole batch, or when you're short on time, freezing the tomatoes really is very beneficial. I like to score the back of the tomato so that the skin, when it thaws out, will slip off really easily. I'm not such a huge fan because when you freeze the tomatoes and thaw them out, or even pour boiling water over the top of them while they're frozen, it releases a lot of their liquid, which that happens anyway when you're canning. Hold on. Okay, so I want to read you this part of the complete book of Home Preserving by Ball when it talks about canning tomatoes. This is one of the reasons why I don't love to freeze my tomatoes, even though that's what I'm going to be showing you today. So there is a separation of juice from solids. So when tomatoes are cut or crushed before being heated, exposure to the air activates a natural enzyme. This enzyme breaks down pectin, which causes the liquids and solids to separate. This phenomenon is the cause of watery sauces. It is also the villain that causes solids to separate from liquids in jars of processed tomato products. Heating tomatoes immediately after they are cut or crushed inactivates this enzyme. That's why many of our recipes direct you to cut small quantities of tomatoes and heat them in batches. Using the hot pack method when packing tomatoes or canning them whole also helps to inactivate this enzyme. So that's one of the reasons why I don't love to freeze them, but when I'm in a pinch, I'll do that too. It's just what works best for you in the circumstance. So I have a bag here that I'm just going to be throwing into the freezer. It has some thawed tomatoes in it already. You can see that the skin just peels right off of those. I took these out of the freezer thinking I was going to can them with these, but alas, here we are. One of my favorite tools is this strawberry corer. It actually is really effective in taking the core out of a tomato, just like this. These little tomato bits I'm going to keep and either make a tomato sandwich or a caprese salad. Okay, since we're getting stuff done together, I figured might as well go ahead and throw together the caprese salad. Now this is not a traditional, you know, like with the soft mozzarella plated individually. I don't exactly have time for that. So what I do is I just slice my cheese. Start like that and then go down this way. This might be easier with my larger knife. Like that. And then just into little cubes. Alright, so we'll start with that. Put that in our container. And I really like to use the cherry tomatoes for this. Cherry tomatoes aren't exactly, don't lend themselves to being canned or preserved in that way. So I use them to make caprese salad a lot because we really enjoy that. Or I also dehydrate them. I have one specific gnocchi recipe that calls for tomato powder. So I dehydrate them and then grind them up into tomato powder. And I also have made the tomato confit and just roasted the cherry tomatoes with garlic, lots of herbs. Pack that into a jar. Make sure you have a good layer of oil over top. And it'll store for a real long time in the fridge. Or you can freeze it. And I like to use that to make pasta dishes. Oops. These are black cherry tomatoes. Sorry, chocolate cherry tomatoes. These are my husband's favorite. They are just really starting to throw out. These are Barry's Crazy Cherry, which I have one plant of. And when I tell you they are prolific, it is not a joke. These are the Super Sweet 100s. This is probably my favorite. The black cherry or chocolate cherry is also in my top favorite cherry tomatoes. I grow these Berries Crazy Cherry because they produce, like you can see. And so I also really enjoy having a bunch of colors of cherry tomato. So that's why I grow them. They aren't my favorite flavor. I really like a pretty acidic tomato. So there are those. So we can just kind of stir that together. And then we have our basil from the garden. The more you harvest your basil, the bushier your plant will be and the more basil you will get. So I'm just going to take some of these larger leaves. I can put any extra on the dehydrator to preserve. All right, and the final few touches are olive oil. Shout out to an Olive Ovation. That's where I buy my olive oil. This one is a multi-purpose called Creta Reserve. So I'm just going to drizzle some of that on there. Not too much. And then some balsamic vinegar. The better, higher quality ingredients that you have, the better your salad's going to be. If you use that real acidic, like this balsamic is very sweet. And if you use that really acidic stuff, it'll still be good, but it won't be as good. And then finally, we need some kosher salt, or large flake salt is what you want. Mix that up. And that'll be delicious. All right, so now that we have our caprese salad made, I've had my tomato sandwich, we've got our tomatoes in the freezer, I have my dehydrator out. I'm gonna go outside, harvest a few things. It is the middle of the day, which isn't the best time to harvest leafy things, but I'm going to be dehydrating them anyway, so I'm not that concerned about it. I have a bunch of kale outside that is being attacked by harlequin bugs, and the harlequin bugs are mostly in one area. I have kale in another area, so I'm gonna harvest some of that kale before the harlequin bugs get to it. And my plan is to dehydrate it, and some Swiss chard and some herbs and things. I want to dehydrate them to preserve them so I can use them over the winter. And I like to make a greens powder that we can add to smoothies or soups or whatever the case. So let's go outside. All right, so on to dehydrating. So when we went outside, I harvested some lemon balm that was flowering, a lot of summer savory because I don't have any of that dehydrated, some mint, and some kale. And so what I'm going to do is I've already washed the kale. You want to make sure that you rinse everything off and make sure there aren't any insects and things like that. I'm just going to take out these large ribs, which you can use these also. You can put these in your juice. If you juice, you could put them in your smoothies. You could put them in your compost. So I'm just gonna kind of tear these leaves up a little bit to make them fit on there. I saw someone on YouTube use the canning jar upside down. Make sure you're not dropping anything down the hole. This is dinosaur kale or Tuscan kale, or this is red Russian kale. This is my favorite kale at this point. So I have a Nesco Garden Master dehydrator. I have several different dehydrators. I got most of them on Facebook Marketplace or at thrift shops and things like that. One fun thing about this dehydrator is that you can use a dry erase marker and write on the side of the dehydrator what it is. Sometimes things can come out of the dehydrator looking drastically different than they did when they went in. And if you don't have a lot of practice at knowing what looks how when it comes out of the dehydrator, then you might want to mark the sides. Might help. I am going to go ahead and get my herbs on here since they're smaller. And I don't want to run out of room putting the kale all over. So I'm just going to spread out this summer savory. And I have these liners on my trays just so that the super small stuff doesn't fall out or fall through to the bottom. And when you dehydrate, you're either going to take the leaves off the stems before you dehydrate or after. Just depends on your preference. I am going to go ahead and put this lemon balm over here. And typically what I do is I take the stems off the things that are easier to take the stems off when they're raw. Like the mint, I will take the leaves off. Another thing with mint is it's a bully. If no one's told you yet, it is a bully and it will take over your garden spaces. And so you really want to watch it. Make sure it doesn't go to seed or flower and then seed. So some of this, if I can get this piece out, I had previously harvested. That's why this is like this, but that is a mint flower right on the end there. And so I wanted to pluck that off. Make sure it didn't get any more traction. So I use this dried mint in tea. Also, you can use it in savory recipes. There's a really great red lentil North African soup that we really like that uses a topping with mint, with dried mint. All right, we're set to go. They do say that the flavors can kind of blend if you dehydrate different things. I think that that's mostly just, let me put it this way. I've never had that experience because I don't dehydrate things like onions or garlic or things like that with other stuff. So just something that's particularly pungent could interfere with the flavors of other things that you're dehydrating with it. But I'm not concerned about what I've put in here today. So I'm going to go ahead and look here. For herbs and spices, it says 95 degrees. For fruits and vegetables, it says 135. So we're going to go 100 degrees. We'll start with 18 hours. And we'll just let that run. So I want to thank you for stopping by. My name is Carolyn. I appreciate you watching the video. If you enjoyed what you saw, please consider subscribing. It really helps the channel. Also, if you want to see any more preservation videos, I'll be sure to link a playlist below. As always, thanks for watching.